Hello and thanks for joining me. My name is Adebayo Olowoake. Would you like to know more about an ancient African empire? I would like us to talk about it because there's probably not much written about African empires and kingdoms of the pre colonial era, unless, of course, if you went to university to study about them. There were several of these kingdoms and empires, and they were in many ways as powerful and influential as kingdoms and empires elsewhere on the planet. Take, for instance, pre colonial East Africa. There, we had the Uyamwezi Kingdom, the Bunyoro Kingdom, and the Buganda Kingdom, to mention just a few. In West Africa, we had the Mali Empire, the Songhai Empire, the Oyo Empire, the Kanem-Borno Empire, the Benin Kingdom, the Uboku Civilization, and the 14 Hausa states, to mention just a few. For this podcast, let us go back in history to explore a territory that, when it was at its height in 1680, it occupied a land area measuring 150,000 square kilometers. It covered southern Benin, the entire southwestern Nigeria, and the western reaches of what is today the north-central zone of Nigeria. It also stretched into parts of today's Republic of Benin, while its influence extended to present-day Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire, where you will find ethnic groups that share demographic affinity with its people. If you're suspecting that we want to look at that ancient powerhouse known as the Oyo Empire, then you will be right. One expert said that this empire actually stretched from the River Niger in the east of Nigeria all the way to the Volta River, which lies between Ghana and Togo. Who were the inhabitants of the Oyo Empire? Without doubt, they were Yoruba-speaking people. Today, they are found in areas that we have mentioned, as well as in Brazil, Cuba, and Puerto Rico. Those Yorubas in diaspora were taken away from the heartland by the obnoxious transatlantic slave trade. And that is how come we have Yorubas in South America today. By the 14th century, the empire had a thriving capital city in Oyo-Ile. However, that capital was moved to Oyo-Igboho in the early 17th century. And this was because the previous capital was vulnerable to being attacked by enemies of the empire. Why did the Oyo Empire become so powerful that it became the superpower of the Savannah belt of Africa? Well, to start with, the empire had a strong internal political system headed by the king, who was known at the time and is still known today as the Alaafin. Its parliament was a bicameral system with two houses, the Oyomesi and the Ogboni. The former had 7 main chiefs made up of the Bashorun, Agbaakin, Shamu, Alakpini, Laguno, Ajanoku, Akiniku, and the Ashikba. While the Oyomesi acted as a check on the Alaafin, the Ogboni in turn checkmated the Oyomesi. Now, how is that for the modern day concept of separation of powers? The Ogboni was a spiritual force in the empire and had religion as the source of its authority. Its members in the empire were powerful, influential, and well respected in society. They also adjudicated on matters relating to murder or manslaughter, and their leader, the Oluwo, had direct access to the Alaafin. Unlike most monarchies elsewhere, the monarch in any Yoruba state, the Oyo Empire inclusive, was not and is still not absolute. Rather, the monarch ruled with the support of the Council of Chiefs, amongst whom was the Bashorun, or if you like, the Prime Minister of the empire. This position of the Bashorun was particularly powerful in the period between the 16th century up until the 18th century. The Alaafin could be forced to commit suicide if he became autocratic or vastly unpopular. Interesting, isn't it? From where did the Oyo Empire derive its wealth? Good question. The empire prospered through trade in its agricultural produce, arts and crafts, and also dealt significantly in coastal trade with European merchants from the port of Porto Novo that belonged to one of its vassal states known as Dahomey, which is now known as the Republic of Benin. Its military system was structured on the Confederate pattern, under which some Yoruba states contributed troops. Why did Oyo build a powerful military force? Well, its experience with other states apparently compelled it to do so. In particular, the Oyo Empire had suffered initially under neighboring powers like Borgu and Nupe, especially in 1550, that is in the 16th century. And having learned from those bitter experiences, the empire elected to build a powerful military of its own to prevent it from falling under any other powers again. It was, however, Alaafin Orompoto who should be credited with establishing the powerful standing military of the empire, which he based on the cavalry, which he was able to do successfully. That was perhaps the first ever mobile infantry force in pre-colonial savanna belts of Africa. By far the largest contributor to the Confederate Imperial Army of Oyo was the city-state known as Ibadan. The Ibadan army was nimble, efficient, and ruthless. All of these attributes were transferred into the Confederate force of Oyo, which was always commanded not by the Alaafin, but a professional commander-in-chief. That role was separated from the functions of the monarch and was held by the Are Ona Kakanfo, which in Yoruba means commander-in-chief. Despite its power, influence, and grandeur, as well as the sheer aura surrounding its eminent status as a major imperial authority in the Guinea savannah, the Oyo Empire would run into stormy waters. Yet, it eventually cracked and lost its supremacy in the late 19th century. Now that you have been introduced to the Oyo Empire, we will be looking at those salient reasons for its collapse. No, it's not what you think. It did not collapse because of the encroaching tentacles of British imperialism. Rather, the empire imploded due to the internal wranglings, a break with tradition, and systemic weakness which plagued it. I hope you've enjoyed listening to today's podcast. Did you learn something new? Or was your previous knowledge of the Oyo Empire reinforced in any way? Or is there something you would like to add? Please feel free to comment in the section below. And we have therefore come to the end of this podcast. I will be seeing you in the next one. Until then, it's bye for now.